Opal, and I will be breaking down the climbing mechanic on Limbo. After multiple playtests of this video game, I have found 5 different versions of the climbing mechanic that can be utilized by the player. Ledge climbing, automatic ledge climbing, rope climbing, vine climbing, and ladder climbing. So let's start with the most common climbing mechanic, ledge climbing. Now, as we come up to this box, we're going to have the perfect representation of what ledge climbing is. Now, there is going to be a ray cast from the character's head at the top of his hairline that shoots out towards the box. Now, each and every time that the player jumps up, if you look at his head, you'll notice that there's an animation that causes his head to tilt slightly up, which will also cause that ray cast to go up and scan the area to see if there are any vertical crevices or ledges that the player can jump onto, which would be any 45-degree angle to 98-degree angle. Now, since there's an edge right here, he's going to come up to it and he's going to see it. As soon as that ray cast hits it, as I press the player input for jump, he's going to latch onto the edge of the box and he's going to be able to climb. Now, right now he's stuck in an idle climbing animation and will not climb up until I use player input for pressing up or pressing up and jump. So I'm going to press up and he's going to initiate a climbing animation, which would be for the ledge climbing. Now, as you get closer to this ledge, this is also a very good example of a ledge climb. This is above his hairline, but as he's climbing and walking, you'll see that his head slightly goes down like that. And that's going to scan the area to see if there are any ledges for the player to climb onto. As soon as I press the player input for jump, he's going to climb onto it and do an automatic ledge climb. Now, automatic ledge climbs means that as soon as the player hits the user input for climbing up, it's going to continue to climb up until the player has completely finished the climb. He's not going to dangle down like he did on this box. So for a normal ledge climb, he's going to just dangle there and you'll have to press up or the jump button to go all the way up to the climb. For an automatic ledge climb, you only have to press once for the user input and it will automatically go. As we continue forward, we're going to go into the rope climb situation. When it comes to this, the player is still going to use the ray cast that's shooting out from his head or out from his body, and it's going to notice this rope out ahead of him, rather through a layer mask or a tag. As the player gets closer to it, he's going to automatically latch onto it via a trigger or any other ray casting done via script, and he'll hold on to it. Now, he will dangle there just like on a ledge climb, and you can ascend by pressing the user input for up or the user input for down to descend. Now, if you notice, on a rope, if I press right or if I press left, the player will be able to swing a little bit, depending on if it's still attached to anything or not. Now, since this rope is still attached to this bottom piece of plank, it's not going to move much, but the player will still be put into that animation pose. This is very similar to what you'll find with a vine rope climb, or a vine climb. Now, as we climb this rope, we'll also notice that we will not be able to get off of it unless we jump off of it, rather via down to cancel the jump, and that will cancel the jump without any ability to be able to climb back up it and catch yourself. So if I were to press down and jump right now, the player would jump all the way down no matter if I pressed up or the jump key to latch back onto it. He will not be able to catch himself and he will continue the process until he reaches the ground. depending on the height of which the player has fallen from, he may die from it or not. If you want to go to the left and jump to the left, all you have to do is press the user input to go to the left and press jump, and the player will do so. The same goes for the right. Now during a ledge climb, the ledge that the player can get onto doesn't always have to be up to his headline or hairline in order for the player to grab onto a ledge. There are multiple raycasts being shut off from the player to be able to measure different types of heights of ledges, rather from his chest, his hip, his head, or even down near his feet. If you notice, this ledge is right near his hips, but if I press towards it and press the up or press the user input for jump, you should be able to climb up it just like he did. This is another example of a ledge climb. Here on a vine climb, we'll notice that the player, if they press the swinging animation for left or right, they will go into that animation pose, but the vine itself will not move, which will kind of make the player be put into a funny state. But this is just to show that the vine is completely different from a rope, as it is more rigid and more stable and is not meant to be swung upon. But if you notice, the player is still put into that swinging animation pose. If we jump from this vine to this rope, we'll automatically latch onto it, and we can swing using those same animations. These are the differences between rope and vine climbing. A final iteration upon the automatic ledge climb is when you come up to a surface that is less than 45 degrees that the player comes up to, but stops the player initially. The player will initially start a climb without any other input other than the direction that they are being used to go to walk. And if you notice, they will automatically put their hand down onto the surface and climb up it. This would be the perfect example of an automatic ledge climb. They are very minimal, and they are not very prevalent on this game or the reference game that we've created as a team, but they do exist. Now, using the climb mechanic, we can utilize this to solve certain traps, such as this one, where the player must bounce on a rope and put that into a trap so that he doesn't get hit into a trap. And this will enable the rope to go a little bit higher so that he can reach a higher surface. There are certain instances where a player will come up to a ledge that is much higher than his head or his hairline, and it'll be questionable if the player will be able to reach it at all. There is a certain extent to where the player cannot reach a ledge, but if you notice, when you jump, the head is raised just slightly to scan the area. And if you jump up to a ledge that is higher than you, if you jump up and it reaches the apex of the ray cast that is being cast from the hairline, as you can see, he will still latch onto it. If it is any farther raised above than the hairline or the animation when he jumps, he will not be able to catch it and will not recognize it as a definable edge for the player to latch onto. There are certain areas of this game where the player will literally not be able to go any further unless they use the climbing mechanic. For example, this player cannot swim through water, so we must find an object in order to climb onto to get over this water. In this example, we have to climb onto this box and we have to climb onto this rope. We have to use another swinging mechanic in order to reach another ledge, and then the player can climb up these ledges until they reach a final one, where they can push over a tree limb and then climb onto that tree limb across the water. There are also special instances towards this game when a climbing mechanic can be used to find little Easter eggs or unnecessarily solvable parts of the game that are usually used for trophies, and that's all. Just like these eggs that can be broken. They aren't pivotal for completing the game, but they can be used in order to find additional entertainment. As the player reaches the bottom, they can push this log into the river and then climb up so that they can reach a previously unreachable area. there are certain periods of time where the player will be dangling on a ledge, but will be cancelled if harmed or damaged during the process. This requires no user input and just complete negligence on the player. Perfectly honest. But it works just as well. Lastly, as we come up to the final climbing component, the ladder climb, the player will be automatically launched onto it as soon as they press the up action key. Now this can be the up arrow key on PC gamers or streamers or steamers, or on the PS4, which is this is being played on. Let me try all that again. Anyways, as we come up to the final climbing mechanic, the ladder climb, we'll notice that the player will latch onto the ladder as soon as they press the up user input. Now on PCs this can be the up arrow key, or on PS4, which this is being played on, all you have to do is press up on the joystick. The player will automatically start to ascend, as similar to a rope, except they will not have to do a jump to reach onto it. But that is only if the ladder reaches the ground. Now if you push left or right, you'll notice that the player does not use the swinging pose animation. This is because on ladders specifically, you cannot do any type of swing because of their sturdiness and stability. There's no point in even trying, so that is not part of the script and that is not assigned to the raycasting. There is no animation for swinging on the ladders, so when you press left and jump, you will simply jump to that direction. One thing to also notice is the size and shape of the player's head directly affects what type of climbing method that the player is going to be using. If you notice, his hairline juts out just a little bit past his body on both sides of his body. This is more pronounced during the front side of his face, but it also reaches on the back side, going past his bottom towards the area behind. Motherfuckers. Let me try that again. Rewind. Another thing to note is that the player's size of his head and shape of his skull directly affects the ray casting that is being shot out of it. There are two rays that are being shot downwards in front of his hairline and on the back of his hairline. And there is an additional raycast that's being shot out on the top of his hairline. All of these will signify whether the player climbs up or climbs down or climbs towards something. If the player wants to climb down, all they have to do is press the down arrow, user input. But they must be towards an edge or right on an edge. If they are right on an edge and they press down, the player will automatically go into a downwards climbing animation. However, if the player goes forward a little and presses the same input, nothing will happen. This is because the raycast is not registering anything other than the ground layer beneath him. If we go up to an edge, you'll notice that the head is going just slightly over the edge, which is letting the player know that they are right on an edge and they can go downwards. So they can climb downwards if they just press the down arrow key, and they can continue down by continually pressing and holding it down. The closer the player gets towards a manipulative object such as a ladder, a rope, or a vine, or a ledge, the raycast will shoot towards it and it will notice it, and the player will be able to initiate those animations that cause the player to climb onto them respectively. This concludes the climbing mechanics that are within my reference game of Limbo. I hope you enjoyed watching the video, and thank you for following me. This video was shot on the PS4, which averages out at about 30 frames per second for metrics references. Thank you very much. Have a good night.